Yep, good to see everyone. Appreciate you guys coming. And obviously a really, really tough loss. But you go out there today and the energy level at practice and how our guys respond and how they're already starting to approach and attack this week. It's nothing short of inspirational, and it just makes me very, very proud of these guys, how much they care, how much they're invested. And I do think we have been practicing better the last 2 or 3 weeks. And when you do that, at some point you're going to start to see some dividends pay off from that. I thought there were a lot of storylines to that game the other night, despite the fact that the outcome wasn't what we wanted. I thought our defense played extremely well. That was one of the best offenses in the country, coming in here with some really high-end talent, averaging almost 500 yards a game. We held them to 320. We held them below their rushing average. We kept their talented skill players in check. They only had 3 explosive plays the entire game. They punted 7 times. So those were all really, really good things by our defense. Unfortunately, we gave up 3 long drives. One was 93 yards in the first half. One was 75 yards to start the third quarter. And then, of course, their final field goal drive. And that was about 2/3 of all of their offense came on those 3 drives. So that was disappointing. And then the other thing I would say is there were a few moments in that game on the defensive side of the ball where we could have made a play to make a significant difference. We dropped an interception in the first quarter. They haven't turned the ball over now in 5 games, and we had a chance to get one there. We got the ball out in the third quarter, but we just didn't pounce on it in time. And that was a game where a turnover would have been just absolutely huge, and we didn't get it. Now, the flip side was going in with our backup quarterback. I thought it was great that we didn't turn the ball over. We didn't give up any sacks. Our offensive line, I think, is playing better and better. We actually had a backup go in and play a significant amount of time in the game. James Carrington played well. We rushed the ball well. We had the ball almost 34 minutes. So there were a lot of good things that we did offensively to give us a chance to hang in there and to keep that UConn offense over on the bench. I thought Gunner managed the offense well. He definitely missed some throws. We were only 4 of 15 on third downs, and we only had 3 explosive plays. We had 3 false starts, which is completely unacceptable and very much unlike us. And then on 4 drives, when we pushed into positive territory, for whatever combination of reasons, we ended up stalling out. We kept 1 drive alive with the fake punt, and that ended up resulting in a field goal. So I felt like offensively we did a lot of good things. We certainly didn't put the game in jeopardy by turning it over, but we also just didn't do anything explosive offensively to kind of go back and forth with UConn to the degree we needed to. Special teams, we had to partially block punt, our 3rd of the season, but if you know anything about me, partially blocked punts don't get it done, right? We want double thumps and an opportunity to score off those plays. And we were just aligned a little too wide. We just wasted that much movement when the ball was snapped. And then one of our coaching mantras is you got to run through the smoke, because every play is its own entity, and you don't know who is going to come free when you're going to block a punt. You might have it designed where, depending on the protection, 2 or 3 different guys could get home, depending on how it plays out. And the guy that got clean was just a hair behind, and so it was a blocked punt technically, but not good enough as far as I'm concerned. Mentioned the fake punt, which was good execution. We had a good punt return in the second half, but even there, one of our corners did a great job at the line of scrimmage, did a great job down the field, actually knocked this guy down, but then his guy got up and made the play for about a 14-yard gain. And if you slow it down and you watch the film, if we would have just finished the play, those are the longest plays in football, that thing might have went for a true explosive return. And actually, one of my points after practice today was we've got a lot of second-year players that are starting to play a significant amount of football for us now, and we're putting those guys in some important situations, and they've got to start to show that that they can play like veterans. So we'll continue to push that. We negated UConn's explosiveness on special teams, which was great to see, because going in, their kickoff return had some explosive plays. Their punt return had some explosive plays. So I thought our coverage unit did a nice job. So, I feel like it was a swing. It was a swing and not a miss. It was a swing, and we just didn't hit the ball out of the infield, which we needed to do to beat that team. You look at what Syracuse was able to do, what Delaware was able to do. They were just able to make one or two more plays to find a way to beat that team. And I think for all the good things we did, we just didn't do enough special things to beat a really good team right there. The last 2 weeks have certainly been two really, really physical games, and you saw guys on both sides exiting the game, and that was certainly the case against Troy. You schedule teams like Troy and UConn; those are going to be very, very physical games, and the last 2 weeks certainly have been that. I stopped by the training room yesterday to check in on some of our guys, and I'm looking at it in there, and I'm saying the only thing missing is Hot Lips Houlihan in there, because we looked like a MASH unit. But we will be better by the end of the week. Jonah, do you even know who MASH is? Man, my goodness. Whew. Shame on you. That's all I'm going to say. Shame on you. We'll keep working on you. We'll keep coaching you up. But hopefully we'll get a few guys back by the end of the week. Obviously, we got a huge game with Eastern Michigan coming to town. It's a big one for us, right? Second conference game, second championship game of the year. And the thing that I will say about Eastern Michigan is that I have tremendous respect for their head coach, Chris Creighton, and the job that he has done there. He actually got that job while I was at Ball State. Back then, we had the East and West divisions, so we would play Eastern Michigan every year. And you could tell from the moment he got there that he was going to be a program builder, somebody that was going to instill a culture to that program. And, if you know college football, Eastern Michigan for many, many years was comparable to what Kansas State was back in the 70s and the 80s before Bill Snyder got there. And then, of course, Bill Snyder did one of the most legendary jobs in the history of college football in what he did to turn around that Kansas State program. And I think in a lot of ways what Coach Creighton has done at Eastern Michigan is very, very similar, right? He took them from a perennial bottom feeder in the conference to a team that is competitive every year, has gone to several bowl games under his tenure. And on top of that, he's just a good guy, and so, look, I've been doing this 34 years and half of it as a head coach, and not everybody is that approachable. And not everybody is that comfortable in their own skin. And you come across some people with some massive, massive egos in this profession. And the thing I've always liked about Chris from the day I've met him is he's just a regular guy, and he's an approachable guy, and he's certainly not one of these guys who's in love with themselves. So and I also think he's a really, really smart guy. He's got a very, very sharp offensive mind. He's still highly, highly involved in the offense. He does have an offensive coordinator that is a guy that's been with him since as far back as his Drake days. But there's no question that the Eastern Michigan offense, which is currently at the top of the MAC in several categories, important categories like third down conversions and red zone efficiency, passing yards, all those things, it's got Chris's footprints all over it. And I like to joke with him, he's a small college guy just like I was, humble in his approach, and went to Kenyon College, which is an outstanding liberal arts college. Don't confuse Kenyon with Oberlin. They're big rivals. Oberlin is one of those places where, they wake up in the morning and say, what can we protest today? The donuts weren't fresh at the bakery. Let's go shut it down. Kenyon, they'll debate you at Kenyon. They'll use those big vocabulary words, and it'll be a little bit more civil. But think the world of Chris, and the thing I will tell you, he knows how to develop quarterbacks. Whether it was last year's guy or this transfer that they got in, Kim from Coastal Carolina. You watch Kim's Coastal Carolina film, and he's kind of up and down. You watch him now at Eastern Michigan, and he looks like he's been in that system for 4 years, and making great decisions, and just very, very well prepared. So I'm impressed with the job they do offensively, getting their guys ready. I think there's a reason why the quarterback is right up at the top of the conference. The wide receiver, number 2, Lockett, is extremely dynamic. We were very concerned about him last year. The Minnesota transfer, I think, is one of the best in the conference. There are 2 backs, McMillan, 28, and number 8. I mean, these guys are tough, physical runners. They will lower their shoulder. They will run you over. There's a play against Texas State where McMillan gets to the second level and lowers his shoulder on a good-looking safety from Texas State and just runs him right over. So they've got a good combination of balance and speed and power. They will put both of those guys in the game at the same time. Number 1, 81, Devereaux, is also a very versatile receiver. They'll move him around. They play a few different tight ends. So they're going to be mostly 11 personnel about 3/4 of the time, but they'll jump into some 20 personnel with 2 backs. They'll jump into some 2 tight end stuff. But their heart and soul is they are a spread, tempo, RPO, inside zone, quarterback read type of team. And then I think Kim becomes incredibly dangerous when he scrambles. You watch their explosive plays, which there are a number of over the course of the season, and it's not just some runs and some double moves, but it's scrambles where he keeps his eyes down the field and he's able to connect with receivers. So there's a good reason why this is such a highly ranked offense. Their defense has had an interesting season so far. So when you watch them over their first X number of games, you can see some similarities to last year, but also an evolution just over the course of this season. And I think after giving up some yards and some points early on, they have really committed themselves to stopping the run and making people one-dimensional. And they are loading the box up. They're playing a lot of bear defense, which is a 5-down defense, where whether it's 3 techniques on the guards or inside shades on the tackles, it's essentially covering up every interior lineman. They're playing a lot of one-high safety coverage, so they're trying to get an extra hat into the box and really forcing you to be one-dimensional. I thought Central Michigan did a nice job with quarterback runs, so that's how you get that number back, right? If you can run the quarterback effectively, you can negate that extra hat in the box, and Central Michigan did a nice job with that. I think Eastern's interior defensive linemen, number 9, number 5, number 99, number 55, they will rotate those guys through. Sometimes they will be in 3 D tackles to play that bear front, and then they've got 2 big, long edge players that, depending on what they're doing coverage-wise, those guys are either tight to the tackles or a little bit wider. But those inside guys are very rugged. Their will linebacker, 44, Paterno, is actually an Elon transfer, a school that I'm very familiar with, not just in my previous experience there as a coach, but as a parent of an Elon grad and a current Elon student. He's a good player. He's their second leading tackler. Number 6, Bryce Llewellyn. Their safety is their leading tackler, very involved getting down into the box, and I think he's definitely an all-conference type guy. So, this is a defense that I think is evolving and sort of finding itself. They held Central to 24 points last week, so they certainly kept Eastern in the game. And obviously we're having our own challenges offensively, moving the ball and scoring points, so I'm sure they're probably feeling pretty good about how they'll match up with us. I think the most underrated part of this Eastern Michigan team is their special teams. They're currently ranked 10th in the FBS. They're number 1 in the MAC in terms of special teams efficiency, and that starts with their specialists. I thought when we saw that Troy punter here a couple weeks ago that was going to be the last, really, really big-time punter that we saw all season. And, you watch this guy, Tomasek from Eastern Michigan, and he's very, very similar to Troy's guy. He can absolutely flip the field position. He's averaging almost 50 per punt. And both of those guys remind me of the punters I used to see in the SEC every week. Their kicker, Kessinger, made the 50-yard game winner against Louisiana Lafayette. That one might not have been 50, but he certainly hit a 50-yarder in that game. So he's got a big leg. I think he's 10 of 13 for the season. Salas, their punt returner, is very shifty, similar to the guy we saw last week at UConn. And then this guy, Javen Norman, looks like a smaller guy. I think they list him at 5'7" or 5'8", number 27, their kick returner. But he is very dynamic back there, and he can really make some things happen. So it'll be another big challenge for our coverage units this week. The history of this game is it's a very, very close game. It took us 4 quarters last year to pull away from these guys. It took a few big explosive plays on offense and an interception from Sean Dolak to put this thing away. So, our guys have a lot of respect for Eastern Michigan, and we've got to continue to have a great week of practice. But we will take this gorgeous weather, and I believe it's going to be 70-something degrees again on Saturday. So hopefully we'll have a nice crowd here to enjoy a good football game.
Looks like Taekwon was out there for some part of practice.
Yeah, that's fair.
How's he doing, and how's he coming along?
Yeah, so, there's no hidden agendas with me when it comes to injuries. I said after the game the other night that I hoped he was probable for this week, and I think he is. He did a very limited amount today, but, moved around a little bit. We'll see where he's at by Thursday. Thursday is sort of a critical juncture as far as I'm concerned in terms of being ready to play and getting the snaps that you need to get during the week, to have the timing down and the execution down, because Friday's really just a walkthrough. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but Gunner took a lot of snaps today. Jason continues to get a lot of snaps, and with every day he's in there, you're seeing the potential that he brings to the table. So we'll see where we're at by the end of the week, but Taekwon wants to play badly. It broke his heart to not be in there last week, but realistically he just wouldn't have been able to be very mobile.
How could Taekwon, if he is able to play, boost your offense? What type of things was he doing in the first 3 weeks that you'd like to get back?
Well, I think we saw the improvement that he was making week to week. And whether it was some of the drives that he led us on in the Kent State game, those 2-minute drives, some of the deep throws he made in that game, some of the scrambles that he had for first downs that were critical in that game, how he started to manage the offense in the Troy game. And obviously we left some plays on the field that day because it's not just about the quarterback, right? It's about everybody stepping up. But I think he's coming along, and he's starting to look like a game-experienced quarterback again, which, he's an older guy, as we know, but he hadn't seen a lot of game experience for a couple of years. So he's anxious to get going again, and we'll just have to, continue to take it day by day. But I'm, again, cautiously optimistic would probably be the best way to put it.
Lamar Sperling looks like he didn't practice. Is that a new injury? I know he was dealing with something preseason.
Yeah.
Is that still being managed?
So he's a tough dude, and he obviously played well, had his first 100-yard game rushing the other day. He got a wrist injury in practice, which he played through, and he not only played running back, but he played on special teams the other day. And he's got a little groin deal going on, so we made the decision to keep him out today. I expect that he'll be back towards the end of the week unless something unforeseen happens. The good news today was that Terrence Shelton's back, and I can't remember if you guys asked me about him or not, but Terrence was an impactful freshman for us last year. He and John Keogh were the only two guys that we didn't redshirt in that entire class, and they both played a lot for us on special teams. Shelton also played some on offense, and he had a preseason injury, and then he actually had mono. And sometimes you don't really know about mono. Most of us have probably had it at some point in our life. Like, you don't even know something's wrong until you get it checked out. So we had to hold him out for precautionary reasons up through the UConn game, but he's fully cleared, and he's been working his way back, getting his stamina back and all those things. And Terrence is he's a great kid. He's a 4.0 student. He's been a vital special teams guy for us. And when he was playing earlier in the season, he was able to pop some nice runs for us. So it's great to have good depth at running back, because it's hard to keep that room all at 100%. We're asking those guys to all chip in on special teams. And so having some depth there is been really appreciative. James McNeil is starting to play a little bit and playing a lot for us on special teams. Right now, Nino Hill, he's in that kind of try to redshirt him mode, play him if we need to, but he's got 4 games to give, so we're going to continue to try to bring him along. So it's nice to have some depth in that room when you have some guys that are banged up, and then it's kind of a next man up mentality that, hey, you might not have played a bunch the week before, maybe other than some special team snaps, but here's your opportunity to get some meaningful snaps at running back this week, and can you take advantage of it?
Along those lines, Pete, any of those guys as sort of a 1-2 punch with Alge, what does that allow you to do offensively, to have maybe different style of guys?
Yeah, it's nice to have in your running back room, your tight end room, your receiver room, it's nice to have different shapes and sizes, guys with different skill sets. And that at times allows you to create some different matchups in the game. But those guys are getting hit a lot, all right? Alge has had, such an incredible career, and part of it is because he's so durable. But he takes a lot of licks in a game, and he dishes a few out too. But you need to have guys that you can rotate through there. And I would say in that room, Shelton is probably the most like Alge body type-wise, and then Nino Hill, who you guys haven't seen much of other than in practice so far, I would say is also fairly similar. And then you have Lamar and you have Messiah Birch, which are a little bit different body types, but very valuable guys. And then James is a big bruising back, and that's why you're seeing him in some short yardage situations. You're seeing him covering kickoffs and on kickoff return, because he's a big physical player.
What have you seen from Deion's transition from line to linebacker, and why has he been so successful?
Yeah, so he's a very bright guy. Deion is an incredible student, and he's a student of the game. So he, he's in our business school, which is not an easy curriculum here, and he manages that very well. And his body type is such, and his skill set is such, that he allows us a tremendous amount of versatility. So last year, he was basically our third linebacker in the game, but he played a lot of edge for us last year and was very productive at edge. Obviously, Red and Sean Dolak were not going to come out of the game unless we absolutely needed to take them out, so Deion's linebacker reps were somewhat limited. But even in addition to edge, when we go up against some bigger personnel groupings, we can move Deion out to our nickel and essentially play a 3 linebacker defense, kind of like an old school Sam linebacker back in the day. So you can't ask a guy to move from position to position to position and then maybe even move him around in some of your third down packages if the guy isn't a tremendous student of the game. So he's got that unique combination of football intellect as well as a skill set and a body type that allows him to do some different things in our package. And I give Joe Bowen a lot of credit for utilizing that skill set and challenging Deion. And the other place I would say Deion has grown, which I'm very proud of him for, is he has become a much more poised football player. Last year, for as productive as he was in the snaps that he played, there were times when he got caught up in the moment and got a little bit overly emotional out there, like some young players sometimes tend to do. And he has made a conscientious effort to be a more poised guy. And then the last thing I'll say, which I really appreciate about Deion, is he is not afraid to be an enforcer. So, leaders fall into 2 categories as far as I'm concerned. And you have to lead by example first. You have to work. You have to have great body language and carry yourself a certain way to be respected. But after that, based on your personality, some guys may just be that. Great leaders by example. They do all the right things. They're low maintenance, and they embody what we want to be about. But any good team has got to have some enforcers. They've got to have some guys that are not afraid to get in your face to uphold the standards on the practice field and in the locker room. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of growth from Deion. I feel like last year he probably felt like, I'm a younger guy, I'm just starting to play some meaningful snaps, I've got to be a little bit more concerned just about my own business, and I get that. But now he's at a point where he's earned everybody's respect, and his word means something because he backs it up. And so it's good to see a little bit of that. Now, obviously, I remember one moment a couple of weeks ago where I said to him, okay, you made your point, let's move on. And so there's a fine line there too, but extremely, extremely proud of him. And, I just think the world of him as a human being. I think he's a great asset on this campus and obviously one of our best players.
Can you elaborate on the partial block not being enough? What are you looking for, where the ball is placed? Why isn't a partial block enough?
Efficiency of movement. And so you've heard the term, it's a game of inches. Well, if my alignment is the width of this podium off, right? So I'm going to guesstimate this is 2 feet wide, right? That 2 feet might be the difference between completely getting my hands on the block point and double thumping that ball versus that ball coming off my fingers and going down the field and being a, whatever it was, 28-yard punt. So that's the difference right there. Or rolling off your front foot, instead of maybe that back foot just moves out a few inches and it's this much, right? So let's just say that punt gets launched in 1.9 seconds. So you've got 1.9 seconds to get from point A to point B. If there's any inefficiency in that movement, for whatever reason, based on your alignment or based on how you get there, and it might be something as simple as, did I take one more rotation before I extended my hands, or did I extend my hands one step too soon? And that might create that foot of space. So those are the details that we coach. And I can tell you right now, when we start winter workouts in February, guess what? One of those first sessions we'll do is teaching how to block a punt. And we've probably done it, 40 times since February. And even something as simple as how we coach a speed stance, which is what you align in, a speed stance when you're lining up in that position on the punt pressure unit. And if you roll off the ball with your front foot and you're extremely efficient with your movement, it's going to make a difference. If you don't, it's a game of inches, right? So that how you approach anything is how you approach everything. So I show good, bad, and ugly plays on Sundays after each game. And there's probably a lot of coaches in America that would have put that block punt into the good category. I put it in the bad category because my expectations are higher. All right, we don't want partial blocks. We want the whole kit and caboodle, right? So that's what the expectations are. Now, am I glad that here we are 3 games in or 5 games in and we've got 3 block punts? Yeah, that's great. But we need to continue to go after them, and that's who we want to be. We want to be an aggressive special teams unit, and we want to make a difference in games in that phase of the game. I think we're coming along. I think Coach Mano is doing a very good job organizing those guys, and his meetings he teaches very well in the meetings. He's very efficient, and I think we're taking baby steps forward there. We've got some guys that are bought in, but we got to get the job done completely.
As you prepare for this game and go through last year's film, I assume you've crossed paths with Dolak's pick 6 play. I mean, it's one of the most memorable plays in school history. Mm-hmm. You as a coach, when that play just pops up as you're evaluating their offense, what comes to mind? What are your reactions to that play?
Well, Sean is just, when it comes to instinctive football players, but also prepared football players, is right at the top of the list of any I've ever seen. And in fact, we had a scout from the Chiefs here today looking at some of our players, and I said hello to him during practice, and we were chatting about just that, about Sean. The reason that he's made it is because of all of his intangibles, because as we all know, he's not going to wow you. I mean, his chin looks like, his face looks like it should be on Mount Rushmore, but he walks in the door, and he's not going to wow you with incredible size and length, and so he's just all about the preparation, the intangibles, and the stuff just makes sense to him, and that's why he's at where he's at. And I'll be honest with you, it didn't take it to be this game week to think about that play, because UConn hit us on that very play on that 2-minute drive, and right there on the sideline, right in front of my very face, right in front of my face, and I said to myself, Sean Dolak would have picked that ball off, because that's just who he is, and so you say, do you miss Sean Dolak? Of course. First consensus All-American in the history of the school, and when you talk about leadership, boy, guys like Dion and Red certainly learned from the best.
How might these 2 losses and close losses the way they were help you and the staff teach and motivate going into these MAC games in any way that maybe you wouldn't be able to do as well if you were on a winning streak?
Whew. That's a fair question. I think the bottom line is you have to do what you do and stick to your plan regardless of whether the outcome is what you want or not. I think that's one of the reasons why we've built a good program in a short amount of time, that there's a structure, there's an organization, there's a process we go through. We're not going to come in on a Tuesday and reinvent the wheel because we had a bad loss, or because I'm crabby, which I've been known to be from time to time. So I think our guys fall back on that structure, that organization, that philosophy, that consistency to our approach. If practice ends 45 seconds late, I own it. I'm like, guys, we were 45 seconds over here today. We got to do better, But I think they appreciate the fact that a Tuesday is going to be a Tuesday. Yes, the game plan is going to be different. The points of emphasis are going to be different. But we do what we do, and we're not about magical slogans, and we're not going to come in after a tough loss and hand out some kind of pamphlet and this is the mantra for the week or something. And I'm not saying that those things aren't effective ways of approaching this thing that we do with 18 to 20-something-year-olds now. But I do think that our guys like our structure, our organization, and they know that I'm going to shoot them straight. And we're gonna be honest in our approach, regardless of what the outcome was. But I'd rather be on a winning streak.
Update on Jake Tim?
Yeah,
center?
he didn't practice today. It's an ankle sprain, severity of which he's getting better every day. Whether he'll be ready or not for Saturday, I'll probably put him in the doubtful category right now, to be totally honest. We'll see where he's at by Thursday. Not that we're looking ahead whatsoever, but thankfully we do have a bye after this game, so that will certainly help his recovery quite a bit if he can't go against Eastern.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, guys.
Thanks, Coach.